Get out!
People like you do not
People
belong
like
here.
you do not belong
The words
here.
hung in the air just long enough for every head in the lounge to turn. The woman in the white blazer didn't move. She blinked once, set down her coffee untouched, and reached for her phone. One tap, screen on, notes app open. A new entry, 2:56 p.m., verbal discrimination, public setting, witnesses 30+. The manager's heels clicked toward her.
Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to wait outside.
I'm going to
No.
have to ask you to wait outside. The woman looked up, calm as a storm waiting its turn. No, she said simply. The jazz stopped mid-note. The manager signaled for the guard to come towards her. And in that perfect electric stillness, no one yet knew. But the next 20 minutes would end 3 careers and start a reckoning. Follow this story. You won't believe what happens next. At 2:52 p.m., Ava stood and walked to the bar. She did not rush. She did not call out. She simply approached the counter where Marcus was arranging bottles of imported sparkling water into a perfect line, and she waited. Marcus did not look up. A man in a navy suit stepped up beside her. Marcus turned immediately, smiled, took his order for a double-shot cappuccino. The man moved aside. A woman in sunglasses requested an oat milk latte. Marcus nodded, started the machine. Ava stood still. She did not tap the counter. She did not clear her throat. 4 minutes passed in the hum of the espresso machine and the clink of porcelain. When she finally spoke, her voice was low and professional. She asked for a black coffee. Marcus glanced at her, then back at his work. He told her to wait her turn. She informed him she had been waiting. He repeated himself, slower this time, as if she had not understood. Ava nodded once. She stepped back without argument and returned to her seat by the window. She opened the Notes app on her phone and typed a single line with the precision of someone building a case. 2:52 p.m., Marcus Rivera refused service. Across the lounge, Jessica Monroe had been watching. She set down her iPad and walked toward Ava with the confident stride of someone used to being obeyed. Her heels were louder than they needed to be. She stopped in front of Ava and asked to see her executive lounge access card. Her tone was not a request. Ava reached into her bag without a word and pulled out a sleek platinum card. The metal caught the light, engraved across the front, A. Carter, founding member. Jessica took the card, held it up to the light, turned it over in her hands like she was inspecting something counterfeit. Her eyebrows drew together. She asked where Ava had gotten it, who had given her permission to use it, whether it belonged to someone else. Ava answered each question with the same calm clarity. The card was hers. It had been issued to her. No one had given her permission because none was required. The air in the lounge shifted. A businessman in the corner lowered his newspaper. A woman near the coffee station glanced over her shoulder. Marcus stopped wiping the counter. Jessica held the card between 2 fingers like it might be contaminated. She announced she would need to verify it. Ava told her that would be fine. Jessica turned on her heel and walked back to the desk. She did not return the card. At 2:56 p.m., Jessica picked up the phone at the check-in desk. She did not lower her voice. She wanted to be heard. She identified herself as the executive lounge manager and requested verification of a founding member card under the name A. Carter. She paused, listening, then repeated that the guest did not match their typical demographic for that tier. She said she would wait for confirmation. Ava did not look up from her laptop. Her fingers moved across the keyboard in steady rhythm. She was not typing an email. She was documenting. Timestamps, names, actions. Every word that had been spoken. Every gesture that had been made. Jessica spoke again into the phone, her voice carrying across the marble floor. She described the card as legitimate in design, but expressed concern about the authenticity of the holder. Then she pressed a button on her radio and requested security to the executive lounge for guest verification. 2 men in dark uniforms appeared within 90 seconds. They were not running, but they were not walking slowly either. The taller one, white, name tag reading D. Foster, approached Ava's seat and asked to see identification. Ava closed her laptop. She reached into her bag and produced her driver's license, boarding pass, and a black American Express card. She handed them over without a word. Foster examined each document with the scrutiny of someone looking for a reason to say no. He held the license up to the light. He compared the name on the boarding pass to the credit card. He looked at Ava's face, then back at the license, then at her face again. He asked if she was certain this lounge was where she was supposed to be. She confirmed that it was. He mentioned there were other waiting areas, suggesting this particular space was reserved for executive members only. She told him she was aware. The second security officer, shorter, Latino, name tag M. Ruiz, stepped closer. He explained they needed to ensure everything was in order, citing security protocol. He asked if she would mind answering a few more questions. Ava told him she did not mind at all. Foster returned her documents but did not step away. He wanted to know how she had obtained access to this lounge. She explained she was a member. He pressed further, asking how she had become a member. She told him she had purchased a membership. He asked, with whose card? Her expression did not change. She repeated that it was her own card. Behind them, Jessica was still on the phone. Her voice rose just enough to carry across the lounge. She announced that the system was not showing the account, that this was exactly what she had suspected. She said she would handle it and hung up. She walked over to where Ava sat, now flanked by 2 security officers. A few other passengers had stopped pretending not to watch. A man in a gray suit whispered to his companion. A woman with overstyled hair shook her head slowly. Jessica stopped in front of Ava and explained that they took fraud very seriously at this facility. Ava stated she was not committing fraud. Jessica countered that the system could not verify her card. Ava suggested the system had an error. Jessica's voice tightened. She proposed an alternative. The card was fake. Ava looked at her for a long moment. Then she unlocked her phone, opened the Notes app, and typed 2:58 p.m. Jessica Monroe, accusation of fraud, no evidence provided. She set the phone down on the table beside her laptop, screen facing up. She did not try to hide what she had written. Jessica's eyes flicked to the phone. Her jaw tightened. She demanded to know if Ava was recording. Ava clarified she was taking notes. Jessica asked for what purpose. Ava did not answer. She simply looked at Jessica with the kind of patience that comes from knowing exactly how a story ends. At 3:03 p.m., Jessica made her decision. She stepped back, squared her shoulders, and raised her voice loud enough that every person in the lounge could hear. She announced that she had just spoken with their central verification team, that they had no record of this card being issued to Ava Carter, and that based on company policy, she was required to ask Ava to wait outside the lounge until the matter could be resolved. She pointed toward the glass doors. The gesture was deliberate, public, unmistakable. Ava did not move. Jessica's voice sharpened. She asked if Ava had heard her, then demanded she step outside immediately. Ava confirmed she had heard. Jessica told her to comply. Ava set her pen down and folded her hands in her lap. She stated calmly that she was not going outside. A ripple of shock moved through the lounge. A woman near the coffee station gasped softly. The man in the gray suit leaned forward in his chair. Marcus stepped out from behind the bar, arms crossed, watching. Jessica's face flushed. She clarified that this was not a request, but a directive. Ava needed to leave this space until they could verify her credentials. Ava responded that she had every right to be here. Jessica countered that without valid membership, she did not. Ava stated her membership was valid. Jessica took a step closer. Her voice dropped but remained cutting. She tried to explain she was being professional, but that people like Ava did not usually belong in spaces like this. She asked if Ava understood what she was saying. The lounge went silent. Ava looked up at her. Her eyes were steady, unblinking. She repeated Jessica's words back to her. People like me. Jessica faltered, then recovered. She clarified she meant people who could not produce valid credentials. Ava asked if that was truly what she meant. Marcus stepped forward, emboldened. He told Ava she was making things harder than necessary, suggested she just step outside for a few minutes. He insisted it was not a big deal. Ava's voice remained quiet but firm. She observed that it was a big deal because they would not ask anyone else in the room to wait outside. Marcus denied this. Ava asked if he was certain. A woman's voice cut through from the far side of the lounge. She was white, mid-50s, wearing diamonds that caught the light. She demanded someone call the police, declaring the situation ridiculous. She complained that they paid for this lounge to avoid exactly this kind of situation. Several heads nodded in agreement. Jessica looked at Ava with something close to triumph. She pointed out that Ava was disrupting the experience for other guests, and that she would have to ask security to escort her out. Foster and Ruiz moved closer, not touching her. Not yet, but close enough to make the threat clear. Ava reached into her bag slowly and deliberately. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, and opened her email app. She typed a message, short, precise, and hit send without letting anyone see the screen. Then she looked up at Jessica, and for the first time, something shifted in her expression. Not anger, not fear, just certainty. She asked Jessica to confirm her understanding, that Jessica was asking her to leave this lounge publicly in front of witnesses because she believed Ava did not belong here. Jessica began to explain about verification procedures. Ava cut her off. She wanted a yes or no answer. Jessica hesitated, then said yes. Ava nodded once. She picked up her phone and typed a second message to a different recipient. She set it down again, screen still facing up. She asked Jessica one more time if she was certain. Jessica confirmed she was. Ava leaned back in her chair. She did not stand. She did not move toward the door. She simply looked at Jessica Monroe and told her very clearly that she had just made the biggest mistake of her career. Jessica's face flushed crimson. She demanded to know if Ava was threatening her. Ava corrected her. She was stating a fact. Jessica reminded everyone she had worked there for 6 years and knew how to handle difficult guests. She turned to Foster and ordered him to remove Ava immediately. Marcus pulled out his phone, camera pointed directly at Ava. He muttered loud enough to be heard that this was going to be good. A black woman trying to sneak into the VIP lounge. He predicted it would go viral by tonight. He was smiling. Ava met the lens without flinching. She did not look away. She did not cover her face. She simply typed another note documenting Marcus's unauthorized recording and hostile behavior. Jessica stepped between them and told Foster to get Ava out. A man stood near the back of the lounge. Expensive suit. Voice that expected to be listened to. He announced his approval that someone was finally doing something about the situation. He gestured toward Ava without looking at her directly, complaining that they paid good money for a premium experience and should not have to watch this spectacle. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the space. Another voice suggested Ava just cooperate and stop making things worse for herself. The energy was building. Whispers, judgment, an invisible mob that did not need to move to do damage. Then, from the far corner, a different voice cut through the rising tension. An older woman with white hair and pearls stood slowly. Eleanor Patterson. Her knees cracked as she rose, but her spine was straight. She announced she had been sitting there for 20 minutes, watching the entire interaction, and felt compelled to point out that this was not about verification. Jessica turned and told her with manufactured respect that she did not understand the situation. Mrs. Patterson stated she understood perfectly. She detailed what she had observed. 3 white guests served before Ava was even acknowledged. Credentials questioned in ways she had never witnessed with anyone else. Public accusations of fraud without evidence. She paused in front of Jessica. She found the explanation unconvincing. Jessica insisted it was a security matter. Mrs. Patterson asked if it truly was, because it looked like something else to her. The man in the expensive suit scoffed about the race card being played. Mrs. Patterson turned to him and noted that she had not mentioned race. He had. He closed his mouth. Jessica's hands trembled as she insisted Mrs. Patterson did not understand, that this did not involve her. Mrs. Patterson disagreed. She explained it involved all of them, because if this treatment was acceptable for one person, it could happen to anyone. Marcus laughed and suggested they would never treat someone like Mrs. Patterson this way. Mrs. Patterson looked at him steadily and told him that was exactly her point. Jessica's radio crackled. A voice came through, urgent and commanding. It instructed Monroe to stand by, to not proceed with removal. The order was repeated for emphasis. Jessica grabbed the radio and tried to explain she was in the middle of a situation. The voice told her to stand down. She released the button. Her face had drained of color, the flush of anger replaced by something colder. She looked at Ava and demanded to know who she had called. Ava did not answer. Jessica lunged forward and snatched the platinum card from the table beside Ava's phone. She held it up and announced she was confiscating it, that if it was real, Ava would get it back, and if it was fake, she would be arrested. Ava's voice was soft, dangerous. She observed that the card was property of the airline and that taking it without authorization could be considered theft. Jessica froze. The card trembled in her hand. Ava's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. A text from a contact labeled only EA informed her the board had been alerted and the regional director was en route with an estimated arrival in 3 minutes. She set the phone down, screen facing up, making no attempt to hide the message. Jessica saw it. Her eyes widened. Marcus stopped recording. The lounge had gone completely silent. No jazz, no conversations, just the hum of air conditioning and the distant roar of jet engines outside the windows.
4 security cameras blinked red from the corners of the room. 7 phones were pointed at Ava from different angles. Everyone was watching, and Ava Carter sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, waiting for the door to open. At 3:15 p.m., the glass doors slid open. A man walked in fast. Mid-40s, Asian American, charcoal suit with no tie. His face was the color of old paper. Behind him came 2 people in business attire, one carrying a leather portfolio, the other holding a tablet. David Chen, regional director for the West Coast. Ava had hired him 4 years ago. He crossed the lounge in 10 strides, ignoring Jessica, ignoring Marcus, walking directly to where Ava sat. He stopped 3 feet from her chair and inclined his head in a gesture that was part greeting, part apology. He addressed her formally as Ms. Carter, his voice tight and professional, barely concealing panic. He apologized for the delay and explained they had just been notified by the board of directors that she was on site. The lounge went still. Jessica took a step back. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. David turned to face the room, his voice carrying to every corner. He introduced Ava Carter as the chairwoman of the board of directors and the majority shareholder of the airline. He specified that she owned 68% of the company they were currently standing in. A woman near the coffee station dropped her cup. It shattered on the marble floor. No one moved to clean it up. Ava stood slowly. She smoothed the front of her white blazer and thanked David for coming, apologizing for any inconvenience. He insisted no apology was necessary. She turned to face the room. Every eye was fixed on her. Every phone was still recording. Good. She wanted this documented. She began by stating the time of her arrival, 2:47 p.m., and explained that she had come not as a guest, but as an owner. Her purpose had been to observe how her company treated its customers when no one was watching. She paused. Let the words settle in the silence. What she had observed over the past 28 minutes was not a series of mistakes, she continued. It was a pattern, a system, a culture of discrimination that assumed someone who looked like her could not possibly belong in a space like this. Jessica's face was white. Marcus had backed up against the bar, phone hanging limp in his hand. Ava turned to Mrs. Patterson and thanked her for speaking up when she did not have to. She noted that this was exactly the kind of integrity she wanted to see in their customers and in their employees. Mrs. Patterson nodded, eyes shining. Ava turned back to Jessica. She recounted the manager's exact words about people like her not usually belonging in spaces like this, the public accusation of fraud, the threat of arrest, all of it done without evidence, without cause, and in front of dozens of witnesses. Jessica tried to speak, to explain she had not known. Ava cut her off. She acknowledged that Jessica had not known who she was. She understood that completely, but that was precisely the problem. The assumption that she did not belong had been based entirely on her appearance, not her credentials, not her behavior, only her skin. The silence was suffocating. David stepped forward to assure her they would investigate fully. Ava's voice was sharp and clear. There would be no investigation. There would be immediate action. David nodded. Yes, ma'am. Ava looked at Marcus. He would not meet her eyes. She addressed him directly, noting his unauthorized recording, his mockery, his participation in creating a hostile environment for a customer, for his employer. All because he had assumed she was powerless. Marcus swallowed hard and tried to apologize, to say he had not meant. Ava finished his sentence for him. He had not thought. That was correct. She looked at Foster and Ruiz. The two security officers stood frozen near the door. She acknowledged they had followed orders, but noted they had also failed to question those orders when they clearly violated company policy. They had asked for her identification 3 times. They had implied she was trespassing. They had made her feel unsafe in a building she owned. Foster looked at the floor. Ruiz was pale. Ava turned back to Jessica one final time. She asked how many black women the manager had asked to wait outside during her 6 years in this position, serving thousands of customers. Jessica said nothing. Ava asked again. How many? Still nothing. Ava took a breath. She looked around the lounge, at the passengers watching, at the staff frozen in place, at the cameras still recording. She stated clearly that this was not about punishment. This was about change, real change, the kind that begins with accountability. David Chen pulled out his tablet. He tapped the screen. His voice was quiet but firm as he relieved Jessica Monroe, Marcus Rivera, and officers Foster and Ruiz of duty, effective immediately. He informed them that security would escort them out and HR would be in contact within the hour. Jessica's knees buckled. She grabbed the edge of the desk and begged them to wait, to please consider that she had a family, that she had bills. Ava's response was measured and final. She should have thought of that before telling a black woman she did not belong. At 3:18 p.m., the head of human resources appeared on David Chen's tablet screen via video call. Patricia Walls had been with the company for 12 years. She did not smile. She announced that the conversation was being recorded. She then addressed Jessica Monroe, Marcus Rivera, and officers Daniel Foster and Miguel Ruiz directly, informing them of their immediate termination for violations of company conduct policies. She listed the charges: creation of a hostile environment, discriminatory behavior, unauthorized recording of a customer, and physical intimidation. She looked directly into the camera and explained the consequences. Their security clearances were revoked. Their employee badges were deactivated. They would be escorted from the premises immediately. There would be no letters of recommendation. Any future employment inquiries would be directed to legal, where only their dates of employment would be confirmed. Nothing more. Marcus staggered and protested that this was insane, that he was just doing his job. Patricia's response was cold and final. His job had been to serve customers with respect. He had failed. David gestured to 2 new security officers who had entered the lounge. They were from corporate, not the local team. They moved with the efficiency of people who had done this before. They instructed Monroe and Rivera to come with them. Jessica did not move. She looked at Ava, eyes wet, voice breaking. She begged for another chance, swore she would never make such a mistake again. Ava's response was measured. She observed that Jessica was sorry she had been caught, not sorry for what she had done. Jessica crumpled. One of the security officers took her gently by the elbow and guided her toward the door. She did not resist. She just cried. Marcus went quietly. His head was down. His phone was confiscated at the door. Foster and Ruiz followed without looking back. The lounge doors closed behind them. David turned to the remaining passengers and apologized on behalf of the company for what they had witnessed. He committed the airline to ensuring that every customer who walked through those doors would be treated with dignity and respect. He urged anyone who had experienced similar treatment to contact their customer relations team, promising they would listen and act. He distributed business cards. Several people accepted them. Mrs. Patterson took 2. Within 30 minutes, the company issued a public statement expressing zero tolerance for bias and announcing a full review of training programs along with mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff. The statement committed the company to change and justice. Within 3 hours, a passenger who had filmed the entire encounter uploaded the video with full context. It was shared 40,000 times in the first hour. By midnight, the hashtag Ava Carter Justice was trending nationally. Jessica Monroe's name appeared on an industry-wide blacklist within 48 hours. No major airline would hire her. No hospitality company would consider her resume. Marcus Rivera faced internal investigation findings that flagged him for violating employee conduct policies. He would not work in customer service again. No reference letter. No second chance. Foster and Ruiz were placed on administrative leave while their actions underwent review. They were later reassigned to non-customer-facing roles. They kept their jobs. Barely. By 4 p.m., the lounge was quiet again. New staff had been called in. The coffee station was restocked. The shattered cup had been cleaned up. Ava Carter sat in the same seat by the window. She had not moved. She opened her laptop and returned to work. Mrs. Patterson approached and asked if she could sit. Ava looked up and told her, of course. The older woman settled into the chair across from her and said she would never forget what she had seen that day. Ava thanked her for speaking up. Mrs. Patterson insisted she should have spoken sooner. Ava shook her head. She told her that speaking when it mattered was enough. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, a plane lifted into the sky. Mrs. Patterson asked what would happen now. Ava closed her laptop and answered simply, now they would rebuild. 1 week later, Ava Carter stood in front of a room full of journalists. The press conference was held at the airline's headquarters in downtown Los Angeles. The room was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Microphones crowded the podium. Every major outlet had sent representatives. CNN, NBC, The New York Times, The Washington Post. Ava wore the same white blazer. She did not read from notes. She did not use a teleprompter. She simply stood at the podium and spoke. She began by explaining that her silence in that lounge had not come from fear. She had remained silent to observe the system as it truly functioned. Not the version presented to shareholders or advertised to customers, but the real version that emerged when people believed no one was watching. She paused. Let the words settle. She shared that she had been a black woman in corporate America for 20 years. She had been underestimated, dismissed, asked if she was lost, if she was in the right building, if she needed help finding the real office. She had smiled through it all. She had stayed professional. She had played the game. Her voice hardened. She announced she was done playing. The room was silent. She explained that dignity was not something other people gave you. It was something you carried inside yourself, no matter how many times someone tried to strip it away. She had not lost her dignity in that lounge. Jessica Monroe had. Marcus Rivera had. They had lost it the moment they decided her skin color mattered more than her humanity. She looked directly into the cameras. She outlined what would happen next. The company would implement mandatory anti-bias training for every single employee, not a 1-hour seminar, but a comprehensive program developed by leading experts in diversity and inclusion. It would be required, tracked, and non-completion would result in termination. A reporter raised a hand. Ava ignored it. She announced the installation of anonymous hotlines in every lounge, terminal, and office. Anyone who experienced or witnessed discrimination would be able to report it, and every single report would be investigated without exception. Another hand went up. She continued. She revealed plans to hire 200 people of color into management and leadership roles over the next 12 months. She clarified this was not a quota, but a correction, because their leadership needed to reflect the diversity of the people they served. She stepped back from the podium and added one final point. She had not done this for revenge. She had done it because silence protected the guilty, and she was done protecting people who did not deserve protection. The room erupted in questions. Ava raised one hand. The room quieted. She addressed every person who had ever been told they did not belong, in a lounge, in a boardroom, in any space they had paid for, worked for, or earned. She wanted them to know they belonged, and if someone tried to tell them otherwise, they should not let anyone see them break. They should stand tall, document everything, and when the moment came, make those people regret underestimating them. She walked off the stage. The cameras kept rolling. 3 days after the press conference, Ava sat down for a one-on-one interview with a journalist from The Atlantic. The piece would be published under the headline, "The Quiet Power of Ava Carter." Near the end of the interview, the journalist asked what she wanted people to take away from this. Ava leaned forward. Her voice was steady, strong. She wanted people to understand that silence was not weakness. That observation was not passivity. That patience was not the same as surrender. She had waited. She had watched. She had documented. And when the time was right, she had acted. That was power. The journalist pressed further, asking about those who claimed she had overreacted, that it was just a misunderstanding. Ava's eyes sharpened. She explained that misunderstandings did not happen in patterns. They did not target the same kind of people over and over again, in the same kinds of spaces. What had happened to her was not a misunderstanding. It was a system working exactly as it had been designed to work. The journalist asked what she would say to people who saw themselves in her story. Ava smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had won a battle she did not ask to fight, and would win the next one too. She told them that the next time they saw someone being treated unfairly, they should not look away. They should be Eleanor Patterson. They should speak up, record it, stand with them, because silence from bystanders was permission for cruelty. She leaned back and addressed those who were being targeted, the ones who were underestimated, dismissed, the ones others tried to erase. She told them to remember one thing. Those people did not know who they were, but they did, and that was their power. The journalist asked if she had any final words. Ava looked directly into the camera. Her voice dropped. Quiet. Lethal. She addressed anyone who judged people by the color of their skin, by the way they dressed, by the assumptions made before knowing their name. She told them to remember they never knew who they were talking to. They never knew who held the power in the room. And in this world, in this time, everything was recorded. Everything was documented. Everyone was watching. She stood and delivered her final message. Choose your words carefully, because the person you dismiss today might be the person who fires you tomorrow. The screen faded to black. White text appeared. Dignity is quiet. Power is patient. Justice is inevitable.